I had to let go of looking like a potato on video, because I've never been the kind of girl that use her looks. I mean, I was never concerned. That's why I was so relieved to work with IT guys, because they really don't care what you look like.
Right.
They might appreciate if you're not too smelly, and even then they're very open-minded about that themselves. So I was relieved when I ended up in teams with IT guys, even though they have a sick sense of humor, so to speak. I can imagine that some people are very uncomfortable with the type of jokes.
Very dark, right?
Yeah, it's the same type of humor that you might find on Reddit,
right?
For example. So it can be a little, rough on the edges, but I'm used to that.
Twitter too.
Twitter is more like a shouting match between people who just hope that somehow mainstream media picks up what they're yelling on Twitter. And Twitter is like having, sometimes when you have like a litter of puppies and one of them is the runt and it's probably not gonna make it, it's still your favorite, it's your favorite. This is what Twitter is like for me. It's my favorite puppy. Even though I can't see what the business model is, they're not successful with their advertising model. Certainly not if you compare them to Google's advertising platforms and Facebook's, obviously. So I keep wondering, where does the money come from? Someone dragged me onto Twitter in 2007, and it was a place where I felt at home because all the other nerds were there too. They were the first users of Twitter because for them it was a back channel to what they were doing. It was a web to SMS platform for everyone who was working on the same project. And then when they wanted to tell everyone, don't upload anything right now, we're upgrading the operating system, stuff like that. It was handy to have something that could arrive as a text message or in a browser back in the day. So the nerds are still there.
Something that I also noticed about Twitter, I feel like about a year ago, 2 years ago, there was this period of time where all of these people in the public eye were getting exposed by old tweets being shown. But then everyone that's been on Twitter from the beginning knows Twitter is not what it was right now. In the beginning, the whole thing was that you could literally say anything. It didn't matter what you say. You could just say like, I hate all the women. I think they should all deserve to die. And people would just be like, ha ha ha. Like no one took it serious. So right now it's being taken completely out of context to see like, look what this person used to say. But it's like, no, you don't. You had to have been there to get it. Like
you had to be there.
It was like it was just normal.
Well, Twitter kind of lost its way. Maybe it wasn't even its way. It lost the identity wars. The identity wars is the identity that you use to log in somewhere. This clearly won by Facebook, but there was a time that Google was also trying with Google+. And when Facebook started enforcing this real first name, real last name thing, Twitter didn't follow suit. So you can still be whatever you want on Twitter. And you can get verified and stuff, but even then, there's ways around it. Now, if it's like being Rumpelstiltskin, really, if you can be whatever you want on Twitter, you can just do whatever you want. At least that's what a lot of people think. Now, another thing that is where Twitter is a little behind to other social media platforms, another thing I really don't understand is that everything is still public by default. This is how Facebook used to be, Everything was public by default. And now only Twitter is like that. And then the third aspect is even more dangerous. Twitter has become, because it is still public, become the default search engine for journalists. So whenever there's breaking news, journalists no longer get the time to investigate. They literally don't get permission to go to press conferences or go out in the streets, and they have to produce a lot more articles in one day than, say, 10 years ago. So the only real window to the world to see what are the other points of view, are there any witnesses, whenever there's like an attack on someone or on a building, you will first hear about it on Twitter, like the attacks and the bombing in Zaventem at the airport in Belgium. I clearly remember when this popped up on my Twitter feed, and you could see pictures of the smoke coming out of the underground, and people being wounded. So that was literally 5 minutes after the explosion in Brussels itself. So Twitter started off like that. Basically, it became big after that plane landed on the Hudson. Mm-hmm. There's people in the Hudson, and you could see this picture of people standing on the wings of the of this plane. Well, that was the first time that Twitter became world famous. Now with Trump, I think without Trump, it would have died.
Really?
Yeah, because there's no business model.
But we need it, though, and that's what I wanted to ask. Isn't it safe to say that, honestly, we could do without Instagram? We don't really need it, but Twitter has become vital in terms of a source of unbiased news. People are on the ground reporting, taking pictures. Look, this is what's really happening. It's not like what the government is saying. So, in a sense, Twitter has become a vital part of journalism, whereas you could do away with Instagram. What would we lose if tomorrow Instagram is shut down? I can't think of anything really important.
Twitter, yeah. Well, the thing about Twitter is that it's easy to automate news. I have one little bot myself. Mm-hmm. So if you look at Clo Willaerts in one word on Twitter, that's not really me, it's a little bot. And then I can just have it say anything. It can be completely automated.
So how does that work? Because I do not understand that at all.
Well, basically Twitter is still open enough to allow it to eat from a feed that somewhere is a result of, for example, search engine results, or you could have Shakespeare's sonnets and then have a Twitter bot recite one every day, one line every day. So you could be creative with it, but you can also be part of a troll army that spreads fake news, which is dangerous in the United States. You could see with the former elections how easy it was for Russian organizations to influence what the public was thinking through some sort of a bot army. I mean, you don't even have to be a hacker or a programmer to do that. It's really easy. So now everyone knows that, but there's other ways. And Twitter is trying to catch up with what people with bad intent are trying to use the platform for. For example, then they do stuff like you cannot just retweet something without having at least clicked on the link.
Mm-hmm. Do you need help making better decisions in your life? Are you lacking self-confidence and motivation to get things done? Hire me today and get a direct daily line of communication with me through video chat and audio messages. I operate on a week-to-week basis, so no long-term investment is required. 7 straight days of Viking advice will get you right on track. Email me at lorenz.dries@gmail.com and change your reality. I'm ready whenever you are. See you soon.